Hey, it's Georgie here, and today I'm going to walk you through what I genuinely believe is the new operating system for careers. Because if you feel stuck right now, or uncertain, or maybe even quietly anxious about the future in the age of AI, it's not because you're not capable, it's because the rules of work have changed. And I keep saying to everyone that careers are no longer ladders, they're more like chessboards. And if you're still playing by the old rules of work hard, keep your head down, and wait to be chosen, you will fall behind, become invisible, and feel out of control. So in this video, I want to do two things. I want to show you the phases of career control and what the path actually looks like now. And then I'll show you the 3 pillars that determine whether your career is going to grow or stall, and ensure that you stay employed and in demand. Now, I've been recruiting for over 12 years, and I've spent 8 of those years running my own recruitment business. I've also interviewed hundreds of leaders on my podcast, and I've written the best-selling book called The Bold Move. And I've identified certain patterns that, when implemented, can lead to a thriving career, but when ignored, can really lead to career chaos. So stay with me and I'll show you how this all works, how to stay in control no matter what comes your way. So this is the plan. We always want to start with the outcome that we want to achieve. So my goal for you today, and by the way, if this doesn't align with what you're looking for, I won't be offended if you want to click off the video, but we want to create complete career control. That's the goal. Now, you feel in control because of these 3 things. So number 1, you have clarity. You know where your career is heading. Number 2, you feel confident. You feel confident in yourself to take the right action. And number 3, you have choice about what comes next. So that's the goal, that's the framework, and you have to excuse my terrible handwriting. I hope you can read that. But if that does resonate, either way, you want more clarity, confidence, or choice, it's worth having this conversation. Now, most professionals I meet are dealing with at least one of these problems, if not all of them, and they get in the way of them achieving this complete career control. So problem number 1 is you're reacting to the market instead of directing the market. You don't have a clear strategy for your career. You're working hard, but you don't actually know where you're heading. AI feels like something that's happening to you, and your industry is changing, your role is changing, and you feel like you're just trying to keep up. You're drifting instead of directing. Problem number 2 is that the market doesn't know your value. You have the skills, you have the experience, but you're not positioned clearly in the market. Your story is vague, your edge isn't obvious, and your CV and LinkedIn profile looks like everyone else's. So instead of standing out, you're competing. And in the age of AI, being experienced is no longer enough. If you don't stand out, you become forgettable. And then problem number 3 is you can't grow without burning out. You say yes to everything, you overwork, you people please, you don't feel confident in bigger rooms, and you don't feel like you have influence. So growth feels exhausting instead of empowering. You lack time and energy for your career, let alone anything else. Now, if any of this resonates with you and you want help with getting back in control, just DM me on LinkedIn or Instagram and put the word control, and I will know you've watched this video, and I can send you a quick document with all the details on what it looks like to work together. But for now, let me just walk you through the complete control plan, because this is the quickest way I've found to give you more clarity, confidence, and choice on where your career is heading next. So, solution number one. Let's go. So, solution number one. We want to attract opportunities to us. And we know when we've done this right, when opportunities find you. That's the first milestone I achieve when I coach professionals. Solution number two is position. And we know we've done this right when you're clear, credible, and you're chosen, not compared. That's the second milestone. You know your worth, you have a compelling story, you own your IP, and you can articulate your value and the problems that you solve. And then solution number three is scale. And we know we've done this right when your career grows, you have a strong personal brand, you have influence in your market, so your career compounds over time without you working harder or burning out. So what I want to do right now is talk you through the how and the simple steps that I use with my clients to be aware of their blockers, of what's been holding them back, so you begin feeling back in control of your career and what comes next. And as I run through these frameworks and these areas, I'm going to ask you to score yourself like a traffic light. So as I go through it, think, am I a green? And that means you're strong, you're solid, and your strategy is working really well for you. Yellow is you're okay in this field, but you could do with a little bit of an upgrade or a bit of help. And red is this is a massive problem for you and it is holding you back. So write it down as we go. Are you a green, are you a yellow or red in this field? And when we're done, you'll have the exact map of what you need to fix first and a clear path forward. So hopefully that sounds good, and if it does, let's go. Okay, so we're going to start with attract. And this is about becoming the kind of person that opportunities move towards. And attract has three parts. So number one is clarity. Because in the age of AI, you're not your job title. And you cannot outsource your direction to your boss, your company, the market, or your last role. Clarity means that you can answer these questions. What do I want next? Why do I want it? What am I building? And what am I working towards over the next 12, 24 months? Because if you don't decide your direction, you'll just accept whatever shows up. So the question I have for you is this. When you think about the direction right now, are you crystal clear on where you're heading and what's next for you? Maybe it's a pivot, a promotion, or a complete reinvention. So if you know exactly where you're going and why you're going there, that's a green. If you have some idea, but it's fuzzy or you're a little torn, that's a yellow. Or if you just don't know what you want next and you're feeling really stuck, that's a red. So when you have a think about that, just mark yourself. Am I a red? Am I a green? Or am I an amber? So maybe that right now is a amber. So we'll just circle that as a yellow. Now, once you know the direction you're heading and you have the clarity, the second piece to attracting the right opportunity is to build your identity. And this is where you become a more evolved, confident, and capable professional. It means letting go of the old beliefs and the habits, because growth requires a different version of you. So identity is about how you see yourself, what you believe in, what you're capable of. It's about those underlying beliefs about yourself. And this will either propel you forward or it will hold you back. And in the age of AI, identity becomes even more important because the people who will win aren't the ones who are the most qualified. They're the ones who can think clearly, communicate, lead humans, make decisions, and stay calm in uncertainty. So right now, do you feel like you're showing up as the person who can attract the next level of growth in your career? or even make a complete pivot or reinvent yourself. Again, just rate yourself. Green is I back myself, I speak up, and I act with authority. Yellow is I can see what I need to become, but I'm not consistent. And red is I shrink, I people please, I second guess myself, and I feel stuck in old patterns. So we want to rate this now. So maybe for you at the moment, that's a red. Maybe you need to work on a bit of identity. And look, I want to just quickly say this before I move on, because this isn't about judging where you are. It's about understanding where you are. Because once you see clearly, you can choose differently. And that's where real change starts. Okay, next, we're going to look at your network. And before we go into this further, I want to reframe what network really means. Because network is not about collecting contacts. Networking is building opportunity pathways. Because here is what I've seen over the last 12 years in recruitment. The best opportunities rarely go to the best applicant. They go to the person who is known, trusted, and top of mind. And this is the area that so many career professionals overlook. Most people only think about their network when they need something, when they're unhappy in their job, or when they're stuck, or when they suddenly are looking for the next role. But in the age of AI and in the future of work, your network isn't optional. It's your career insurance policy. And just to really hit this home, right now over 85% of roles are filled through network alone, which means that many of the best opportunities are never even advertised. You'll never see them on job boards, you'll only access them through people. So before we move on, I just want to give you a real live example of this. Now, very recently, because I've spent years investing in my network, I placed an incredible senior leader into an amazing role. The hiring manager came to me directly and the role was never even advertised. Now, I already knew the right person because I'd built this relationship over time. She had kept in contact with me and I had done the same with her. So when the role came in, I reached out to her, I introduced her to the opportunity, supported her through the process, and within 3 weeks, she had accepted a fantastic offer and now is absolutely thriving in a new role. Now, that opportunity existed because of the network and the relationship we had built together over time, not because of her application. And this is happening every single day in the market, which is why every professional I work with, I coach them to intentionally invest in their network as part of their career control strategy. So my question for you is this: do you have a strategic network that creates opportunity? And just rate yourself on this now. So you're a green if you have strong relationships and opportunities come through people. You're a yellow if you know you should network, but you're inconsistent or you find it awkward. And you're a red if you're isolated and your network depends on applications and luck. So let's just mark that down now. So maybe you've got a strong network. So maybe that's a green for you, okay? So you see what's kind of happening here. We're kind of getting an idea of where we are currently. And this is going to show us where we need to work. But that's attract. Clarity, identity, and network. And when those are working, you are no longer invisible. You start to feel movement again, and you become a magnet in your marketplace as opportunities come to you rather than you going to them. And this is the absolute career gold and the fastest way to feel back in control. So now let's look at the next solution, position. Now, position is all about standing out, not to everyone, but to the right people. And position has 3 parts again: your story, market demand, and packaging. Because in a crowded market, experience is not enough. You need to be distinct. Okay, so part 1 is your story. Your story is your narrative. It's how the world understands who you are and why you matter. It answers some simple questions. Who are you? What do you do? What do you stand for? What problems do you solve? And why should anyone trust you? The issue I continue to see is that most people don't have a story. They have a timeline. I did this, then I did this, then I did this. And that's not a story, that's a CV in sentence form. A real story sounds different. A real story says, here's what I've learnt, here's what I believe, and here's how I create value. And this is where your edge comes in. Because your edge is not your job title. It's the way you see problems differently because of what you've lived, learned, and delivered on. And this is where your story becomes your strategy. When you start turning what you've achieved into meaningful stories and your stories into simple frameworks, you begin to create your own IP. And that's how you move from I did this kind of work to I'm known for thinking this way. Think of it this way. Frameworks make you visible. They make you memorable. They make people say, I want to work with that person. Because now you're not just showing what you've done, you're showing how you think, how you solve problems, and how you create results. And this is how you position yourself in your market, not by sounding impressive, but by being understood. Your story, your edge, and your IP are not separate things. They work together, and they explain who you are, what you stand for, and how you help others create outcomes. So let's pause here and bring awareness to your story, and let's just traffic like this now. So ask yourself, can someone repeat my story after hearing it once? So you're agreeing if your story is clear and compelling. You know how to explain what you do and the value you bring. You have frameworks and IP for the outcomes that you delivered on. You're a yellow if your story is okay, but you ramble and it's not sharp or memorable. And you're a red if you feel unclear or you undersell yourself or you sound generic. So take a moment now and think, am I a green, am I an amber, or am I a red? Now maybe you are a red here. Maybe your story and your IP and your frameworks need some work. That's okay, mark it down. It's good to be aware. Now, final thing in your story. When your story is clear, your positioning becomes really powerful. And when your positioning is powerful, opportunities start finding you. This is super, super important. Okay, now let's look at part 2, which is market demand. Just going to have a sip of water. Doing a lot of talking today, it's good. Okay, now this is the part that most people skip or sometimes even choose to completely ignore. And I get it because it can be really easy to just want to stay in our comfort zones and not look too far ahead. But if we want career control, then we can't afford to bury our heads in the sand and pretend that change isn't coming, because it is. Market demand is about lifting your head up from your current role and asking bigger questions. Questions like, where's my industry heading? What's growing and what's shrinking? How is AI changing what I do? What problems will companies be desperate to solve next? This is where you stop thinking only about your next job or your next job title and start positioning yourself for the future. Now, in my coaching program, I use a simple framework called SCAN, and that has helped so many professionals stay ahead. But if you want a really quick place to start, here's what you can be aware of. Look at what's changing, what's being disrupted, where is opportunity being created, how can AI be used as a force for good, and where might it replace certain tasks? Because this isn't about fear, it's about foresight. The more aware you are of where demand is moving, the more power you have to stay 2 steps ahead. And this is where you begin to look at your own skills differently and start thinking about what skills do I actually have? Where are my gaps? And how can I align myself to problems businesses actually need to solve? Because the market demand is not just about jobs, it's about opportunity. It's about turning your skills into solutions and your experience into value and your awareness into direction. And sometimes it's even about creating something new, a new role, a new lane, or a new way of working that positions you for the future of work. So before we move on, let's bring some awareness to where you are right now and ask yourself, do I understand where demand is moving in my industry and have I aligned my direction to it? So you're a green if you're aligned to growth areas and you're building the right skills for your future. You're a yellow if you're aware, but you're not being strategic and taking action about it. And you're a red if you're guessing and you're worried that you might be in a slowing market or a dissolving market. So take a moment right now to jot that down. So market demand, you might be, maybe you're an amber at this. Maybe that needs a little bit of work. And again, this is all good. We're just bringing awareness. Okay, now we're going to move on to the final part of positioning. And this is where we package. Now, packaging is how you show up on paper and online. And in over a decade of recruitment, I can tell you this, because I have seen a ton of brilliant people who are being overlooked, not because they lack talent, but because their packaging is unclear. So think of packaging as everything someone sees before they even meet you. So it can include things like your CV, your LinkedIn profile, your headline and bio, your online presence, and how quickly you communicate your value. And this is where all the work you've done so far comes together. So at this point, you understand your story, you know your edge, and you've turned it into some IP. You understand where the market is heading, and you are actively positioning yourself for the future. Now the question becomes, does the way you present yourself reflect where you're going or only where you've been? Because your packaging should be a positioning statement. So this is where we get intentional about what we put out into the marketplace. So how do you describe yourself? How do you talk about the problems that you solve? And how does that show up online? How do you build your personal brand? So that might mean refining your CV or LinkedIn, or building stronger online presence. Maybe it's even putting together a website, and we have helped so many professionals really nail their packaging, because if you really want to stand out, it must be aligned to the problems you solve and the value you bring and the direction that you're heading towards. You need to position and package yourself not just for your past, but for your future, because in a crowded market, opportunities don't go to the most qualified person. They go to the person who is easiest to understand. And when your packaging is strong, you stop chasing opportunities and you start attracting. So let's bring awareness to where your packaging is right now. Okay, so ask yourself, does my packaging make me look like the obvious choice? You're a green if your CV and LinkedIn are sharp, modern, and clearly communicate your value. You're a yellow if your CV and marketing material are okay, but they could be stronger and more future focused. Maybe they need a bit of a refresh. And they're a red if they're outdated, generic, or they're not telling the right story or narrative. You're positioned for where you've been, not where you want to go next. So take a moment and do that now. So maybe you've got all of your packaging looking really good. And if you have, that would be a green. So just take a moment to do that now. So this is how you position yourself in a competitive market. This is how you future-proof your career. And by now, you should have a bit of a clear snapshot of what's working, what's missing, and what needs your attention. And as I said, this is not a judgment exercise. This is about awareness. And if you're seeing a few ambers or reds, that's okay. You haven't failed. You've just uncovered what you didn't know before. And for many of you, this might feel like a lot. You might be thinking, I know what needs to change, but I don't know where to start. And that's exactly where a framework and a strategy really matter. So if you're sitting there right now thinking, I'm ready to take back control of my career, and you want a clear plan for how to implement this, just send me a DM on Instagram or LinkedIn with the word control, and I'll send you the details of my coaching program so we can work together and we can work all this through and make sure you're positioned for what's next and you're attracting the right opportunities to you. So now let's move on to the final piece of career control. And this is where we scale. This is where we turn positioning into momentum. This is the part I get really excited about. So I want to introduce to you the final solution to career control, scale. And this is where so many professionals get it so wrong, because they think that when they're scaling, they need to work harder, work longer, take on more responsibility. But in my opinion, that is not scale, and that is not what I teach. That's the fast track to burnout. You never want to grow at the expense of your health and well-being. Been there, done that. And yet this is exactly what happens to so many professionals, and especially women. And right now we're seeing more and more women leave the workforce, not because they lack talent, but because they haven't been intentional about what they want to grow, what they need to let go of, and what systems and boundaries they need in place to support that growth. So for me, scale is not about doing more. Scale is about doing things differently. It's about attracting the right opportunities rather than chasing them. It's about positioning yourself so growth feels aligned, not exhausting. And this is exactly why the first two stages matter so much. This is why I always start with attract and position. Because when you're clear on your story, clear on your value, and aligned to the market demand, the scale phase becomes so much easier. So you've already done the groundwork. Now you can build momentum without burning yourself out. So when I think about scale, there are three parts to this. So the first is personal brand. Becoming known for what you do so opportunities come to you instead of you constantly having to prove yourself. The second is boundaries and systems, putting the right structures in place so you can grow without sacrificing your energy, your health, or your life outside of work. And third is influence, how you communicate, how you show up, how you lead, being really intentional about who you are becoming and what's next for you. So again, this is not about working harder, it's about sustainable growth. So let's dive into all of these three parts of scale and how I teach professionals to grow with intention. Quick sip of water. Hopefully you're getting a lot of value from this. I know that it's been quite intense, but hopefully you feel a little bit more in control of your career as well right now. But first one, personal brand. So this is the first part of scale. And in the future of work, I keep saying this and I'm going to keep repeating it because it's so true. Your reputation will become your resume. Personal branding is not about becoming an influencer. It's about being visible for the right things. It answers three simple questions. What am I known for? What do I stand for? And what do people think of me when they see my name? Because visibility leads to opportunity. Your personal brand is now your career currency. It's also your career insurance policy. It's how you grow with intention instead of waiting to be chosen. And I use a really simple framework to help people think this through. I call it MAP, which stands for mastery, what are you good at and what problems do you solve? Authority, why should people trust you? And personality, who are you and how do you show up? So this is how you become known in your industry, because building a brand is no longer optional. There is a way to do this that feels authentic, real, and aligned with who you are. And when you do this the right way, opportunities start coming to you. So let's pause and bring awareness to your personal brand right now and ask yourself, am I visible and known for what I want next? So you're a green if you're visible and opportunities find you. You consistently add value to your marketplace and people know what you stand for and why. You're a yellow if you show up but inconsistently and you have no real frameworks or systems to do this. And you're a red if you're invisible, great at what you do, but no one knows. You don't know what to post, why you should post, and maybe you have some fear or imposter syndrome about posting. And just to pause here, because this is so normal and one of the biggest reframes I work with when I coach professionals. So let's think about this for a second. Where are we in this amber, red, green? So maybe personal brand is a red. Not something you thought about before. You get super nervous about the idea of even posting. You've got a lot of fear around it. Totally normal. So maybe that's a red for you. Maybe it's a green if it is. Amazing. So the next part of the scale is systems and boundaries. My handwriting is gradually getting worse as the video goes on, so I hope you can read that. Now, this is where so many professionals get trapped because they're capable, so they get given more. And before they realize it, they're carrying everything. So when it comes to scale, if you don't have the systems and boundaries in place, this is how burnout happens. And I will be honest, because I have learned this the hard way. When I first started scaling my business, I had no real systems and everything felt scattered. Nothing was clear. There were no frameworks and I had no time or no energy management in place. So what happened? Well, I was a busy fool jumping from task to task and wearing busy like a badge of honor. And this is something I talk heavily about in The Bold Move. Nowadays, my weeks look very different. I have systems, I have boundaries, and my diary is my boss. I'm really intentional about how I use my time. I'm intentional about when I work, and I'm intentional about when I rest. Because you cannot do intentional work without intentional recovery. And this is what systems and boundaries protect. It protects your energy, your time, your focus, and ultimately your standards. And this is how you stop being the person who can handle everything and become the person who leads. So it's about knowing what to say yes to, what to say no to, and removing the guilt from that decision. This is not about doing more, it's about prioritizing what actually matters. And when you get clear on this, everything becomes easier. You become so much more proactive, not reactive, and that changes everything. Now, ultimately, you become the master of your time instead of a prisoner to it. Now, drop me a comment below if that sounds good. And I can honestly say this is one of the most powerful shifts that I see when I work with professionals. So again, let's pause and bring awareness to this right now and ask yourself this. Do I have strong systems and boundaries that protect my time and energy? You're agreeing if I run my week, I'm not constantly reacting, I feel in control of my schedule, I know what I need to prioritize, and I feel accomplished at the end of each week. That's the green. You're a yellow if I'm okay, but I still overwork and overcommit. My to-do list feels like it's never ending and I have small amounts of time for anything that gives me growth or joy. And you're a red if you feel overwhelmed with no clear boundaries, no real structure, and you often feel unfocused or even exhausted. So wherever you are right now, mark it down. So maybe when it comes to systems and boundaries, maybe you're a green. Maybe you've got this locked down. Maybe you've got your calendar all under control, a nice healthy to-do list, and you've got plenty of time to do Pilates, walk the dog, and do all the things that you love, spend time with your family. If that's you, awesome. Mark it down as green, or if it's not you, it's a red or an amber. Because this is one thing I will say. Scale without systems is chaos, and growth without boundaries leads to burnout. And this is exactly why systems and boundaries are a non-negotiable for long-term sustainable career control. And finally, the last part of scale is influence. This is a really big one. So influence is your ability to inspire and move others. So whether this is your colleagues, your boss, your network, and just the rooms that you walk into. Now, the more influence you have, the more career control you have. And influence shows up in everything. It shows up in how you speak, how you present yourself, how you communicate, how you manage your emotions, and how you show up under pressure. It's your presence, your energy, and your ability to be heard and understood. We've all met those people who've influenced us. They're usually not the loudest in the room, but they are clear, they are confident, and they articulate their value so well. And that's why people trust them. That's influence, and influence creates impact. And the more impact you have, the more opportunities open up to you, the more responsibility you're trusted with, and the more control you have over the direction of your career. And this is where we get intentional about how we communicate, how you present yourself, and how you lead yourself and others. Because influence is not about what title you have. It's about how you make people feel when you work with them. And this is where, in my program, I focus on. We focus on your presence, communication, emotional intelligence, and emotional regulation. Because when your influence is strong, your career stops being reactive and starts being intentional. So let's bring awareness to this right now and ask yourself this. Do I communicate and show up in a way that positively influences others? You're a green if you communicate clearly and you're seen as someone who others trust and follow. You're a yellow if I could be more confident and intentional in how I show up. I feel like I'm an imposter in some rooms and the nerves can get the better of me sometimes. And you're a red if you struggle to be heard or taken seriously. So take a moment and jot that down. So maybe influence needs a bit of work, so you'd mark that as a yellow. And again, as I keep saying, this is not to judge, but to build awareness of where you are now. So that is almost the end of the video, and I hope that it's given you some really good awareness and a fresh way of looking at your career. Now, if this video has resonated with you and you'd like to find out more about working together, just send me a DM on LinkedIn or Instagram with the word control, and I can send you more information on how we can work together and if I can help you achieve career control. And I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope this serves you, and let me know in the comments below what your biggest takeaway was and what you're going to work on next.